Life in all its myriad forms cover the jewel of the solar system, Earth. The planet we call home boasts an amazing array of flora and fauna, with the dominant species, us, perched atop the global food chain. But is that perch as secure as we believe it to be? And as we look down, do we truly see all that exists in the shadow of the pedestal of our own creation? Or does hubris blind us to that which we cannot easily see? There are those who say winged creatures glide through moonlit skies or glare from the darkness with crimson eyes. Are the plaster cast footprints filling display cases in museums around the globe proof of the existence of the creature indigenous people of North America named Sasquatch in bygone days? Or are they all part of an elaborate hoax perpetrated against an all too often gullible society? And are we justified in embracing the evidence of eyewitness accounts and other evidence, or equally justified in denying that any new thing could be discovered under the burning light of day or the cool rays of a full moon? Are cryptids such as Mothman and Bigfoot actual living creatures, or do they only haunt the fertile forests and fields that border the pathways leading through the shadows of legend? Today we have Brandy Burnette with us. He's from Idaho, and he has some experiences with the strange and the paranormal. So how are you today?
I'm just fine. How are we going?
It's going pretty good. So we've discussed this a little bit. You have some unique experiences. You'd care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm here in the state of Idaho, and I'm Native American from Fort Hall. And, back in the day when my grandmother used to tell us about, verbal stories and stuff they passed down to us, she used to tell us that we were on the pathways of the Bigfoot's migration patterns. And, when I was a young kid, she'd tell us stories about, Bigfoot and some scary stories to, try to get us to listen, But growing up, I never believed that they would be true, you know what I mean? And now that I find out that... What's that?
I said, that's understandable. I mean, when you're hearing something secondhand. But how did she react when she was telling you these stories? Did she treat it as though it's something everyone knew, as if she believed it? Yeah. These were stories that her grandparents had told her about, not crying at night. And if you were naughty or you got in trouble, they'd say they'd tell you not to cry at night, or Bigfoot would come and grab you and put you in his knapsack. And the naughtier you were, the better you tasted. And so that's what they used to tell us, to, make us listen and not to be crying at night. And if you got in trouble, they'd tell you that. Well, I think as a child,
and so that was kind of like, yeah. So when we got in trouble, they'd tell us that, and we'd go quiet because we didn't want to be put outside and have Bigfoot come and get us.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the story that they used to tell us when we were little kids to try to get us to listen. But the older I got, I was doing a lot of fishing with my grandfather and stuff. And my very first encounter wasn't really an encounter. It was just more like I went fishing and I caught some fish that day and was coming back, and the sun was setting, and I kind of was in a rush to get back because it was going to get dark. And I had I caught about maybe 4 or 5 good-sized trout, and we were going to cook them up for my grandfather, and then I was coming back, and when I was leaving the area, it's kind of down in a valley a little bit, and I had to walk back from where I left my bicycle because I rode down there to, catch fish. It's not too far away from our house, but it's got cedars and junipers and stuff like that. And when I was walking back up the hill, I started hearing footsteps behind me, and when I'd stop, it would stop, and then I would walk a little bit more, and I was thinking, that ain't no deer or buffalo or something, because we have buffalo down in our bottoms area, and deer and all kinds of stuff. But, it was getting dark, and I could tell that it was heavy, and I could hear only 2 footsteps, like step, And I was getting more concerned the later it was getting, because I was getting closer to my bike. But it started, getting closer to me, and I couldn't see it through the trees. And instead of me getting grabbed or getting taken, because I had these stories that, that he kidnapped people and stuff and kids and stuff. So
yes,
I just threw my fish in the tree, and I got on my bicycle, and I just rode back home real quick, because I didn't want to be taken. Rather have him eat my fish than grab me.
Well, yes, I think it would be a lot better. And how old were you when this happened?
I was about maybe 15 or 16. Yeah, I was still a youngster, but, it was pretty scary, and I was like, couldn't believe that I had something follow me like that,
Well, and I would think, too, that you mentioned footsteps. And being around other sort of animals, you'd know the difference between a footstep and a hoof step, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. And it, when we go hunting, you could hear the deer when they hop, they hop,
Yes.
It wasn't like that, you could hear it definitely stepping left to right. And that really kind of frightened me, because it was getting darker, evening time, It took me a minute to kind of process that somebody was down there following me. I was like, oh no, and I had those thoughts go through my head about what my grandmother used to tell us and my grandfather, and so I figured I better just dispart my my fish and let them have that as an offering instead of taking me.
That's totally reasonable.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah, but that's the fastest I've ever rode my bike back home, And after that experience, I kind of didn't go fishing down in that same area unless I had somebody with me.
Yeah, strength in numbers, yes.
Yeah, that was when I was a young guy, and I told my grandfather, and he just said, yeah, if you don't bother him, he won't bother you. But, I think he was following me because I had that fish.
Well, it could very well be.
Probably. And I didn't feel no way while I was fishing. Usually people talk about that.
Yes.
They feel the presence of him and stuff. But that time I didn't feel like I was being watched or anything. But when I got older, me and my cousin, second time I had an encounter, I was with my cousins. And we were more like brothers, really. And then my uncle's son was with us too. And he's my other cousin, and we were down fishing again, but we went on boats to these islands, where hardly anybody hunts at. And we traveled across the stream there, and we went to an island where it was pretty dense brush back there, and we were going to, go in like a line push the deer a certain way.
Yes.
And we separated. We were walking in a line about maybe 100 feet apart. And I was walking straight, and I came upon an area that was really dark with vegetation and cover. And I came to an opening, and it looked to me like somebody had ran into the brush and just rolled in it and smashed down all the willows. And it made a lean-to, but it was more like a bamboo mat. I could kind of look at it, and it looked like it was a couch, kind of like made out of willows. It looked really something I've never really seen out of the brush before, and it was way in a really dark, secluded area of the trees. And I had that feeling like I had broke into somebody's house. You know what I mean? And it was kind of smelly. It smelled really kind of like musky.
Yes,
a musky smell, and it smelled really. Kind of like a skunk smell, really musky and skunky, kind of like a sour smell. And I looked at that, the willows, and it formed like a big old couch. And I was looking at that, I go, that looks like somebody's bed or something laying there. And I got that feeling like I felt like I broke into somebody's house or something. And then right when I was looking at that, I heard the brush break ahead of me, and we were hunting, and I had my gun, and I leaned against a tree. And I got kind of frightened because I just had that, sensation hit me right then. And then the brush is breaking, and I hear something come crashing towards me. And I was leaning there, and I got my gun ready. I thought it was a deer coming at me, and I was waiting, and here they come running right past me, and it was a herd of horses that was spooked, and they come running right past me, and that just scared the living daylights out of me. I was standing there going, oh no, what the heck is this coming at me? And it was sounded, the brush was crashing, and it was a pretty loud, and it frightened me pretty much, because I already had that feeling like I broke into somebody's house.
I was going to ask, you mentioned that feeling like you were in someone's house. This didn't remind you of a nest of a wild animal or anything like that, did it?
It reminded me of a nest, but more like a couch, like where somebody would sit or lay. And it was really like it had. Let me explain how our willows are kind of like they're maybe about 5 or 6 feet tall.
Yes,
and they're really dense and thick, And when it smashed it down, it looked like a willow mat, is what it looked like, kind of like a mat. Those bamboo mats like they make like that?
Yes.
It kind of resembled that because they were all laid down in a certain way. And I was thinking it looked like a mat to me. And I was thinking that looks like somebody's bed or something that they're laying down in. And it had a bunch of the willows where it rolled it down and mashed it. I could tell that something rolled there because it just looked like an impression in the willows to me, like somebody had rolled around in there and knocked the willows down or smashed them down to some extent. But it definitely looked like as big as a couch, how long a couch is. Yeah, I thought it looked like somebody's laying there, Well,
see, that's what I was clarifying, that it wasn't something that looked like it had been made by a wild dog or a deer or something like that.
It was way beyond a nest. I've seen how deer make round nests, and it wasn't round. It was more long, more like about 10, maybe 20 feet long. And I was thinking, that ain't no deer nest or nothing like that.
No, it doesn't sound like any nest of deer that I've seen.
Yeah, nothing that long, I mean, even if you had a herd of them, it's still, they make separate beds, And so I knew it wasn't nothing that, it looked more like a native. We make lean-tos and stuff when we go in there, but if you had to do something survival style,
yes,
like if you wanted to be out of the rain, that's what it looked like to me, is somebody made a survival situation there. And where we're at, you have to cross through the creek on a boat because it's the Snake River is pretty big. It's a big river, and it's more than what you wouldn't want to really swim because it's pretty deep. They got big currents and eddies and stuff like that could get you if you don't know what you're doing.
Right, not something.
But that island. Yeah, more than what you'd want to do with a gun or, waders or, anything like that. So when we crossed over there, and I seen that, and those horses came through, and they made a trail where they were running, and I seen that, I said, I'm out of here. My hair was on the back of my neck standing up, and I got out of there. I followed the trail where I came back through where the horses ran through because they made a big trail. And something had spooked those horses pretty good because they were running at full pace.
Yeah, it's
and whatever was
that stands out. What would it take to spook an entire herd of horses?
Something pretty big. And, we have cougars around and badgers, and the bear aren't really down here in our bottoms area. They're more up in the mountains. In our mountain area, they have bears up there, but down but where we're at, there isn't really, nothing that big. We have buffalo down there, and they're huge, but, and they're a herd animal too. When they start running, take something pretty big to scare them too. You know what I mean? So I knew something had been over there that scared them. And I just ran out of the same way because I knew something was over that way after I seen that lean-to thing and the way it smelled. That kind of got me spooked that time. I just ran out of there. But when I made it back to my cousin and them, yes, and we all met up back again at where we was at by the boat, and they had told me that we're on their side where they were at, that they ran into a pile of poop that was sitting there that looked more human than like an animal poop, you know. They said it looked more human, and it was a pile that was like 3 times bigger than anything that they have ever seen. And they told me that right then and there, and I was like, wow, I just seen a lean-to back there that was made out of the willows. I told them, and we were just kind of, you know, talking about what we had seen over there and felt, you know. And I told them, I said, I didn't feel good back there when those horses ran. They go, yeah, something scared them horses. And they were on the other side of where I was at, and it must have went their way because those horses were on their side. And so when those horses ran towards me, I just ran back towards the boat, and we all, you know, got together. And my other cousin, he was the last one on the end of the line. He actually seen a deer come running, and he shot it. And I guess he had wounded it, you know, kind of like bad.
Yes.
And sometimes, you know, when you shoot it and it's wounded mortally, it let out an ugly cry, like, wah, you know, it was screaming, you know, before it died.
Yes.
And it was an eerie sound, he said. And then he said he heard something that was in the brush over there, but he couldn't see through the brush. And it was something was hitting the trees over there. And so we went over there towards where he was at. He was hollering, hey, I'm over here. And so we all went that direction, you know, towards him because we were by the boat. And we said, hey, let's get out of here. You know, you got that? And he said something was banging on the trees. So each one of us had some kind of incident from, you know, where we were spread apart, you know. And when we all gathered, we got that deer in the back of our boat, and we got out of there, you know. We said, we'll get, you know, out of there pretty quick because we had those incidents with us. Each one of us had something that, you know, happened to us. But when we was getting across and we got it back in the boat and we got everything ready to go, my truck was an old Dodge truck, 3/4 ton. And we started leaving, and I thought I had a full tank of gas. And when we was leaving, I hit a big bump over the bridge that we crossed to get away back on our main road. It hit real hard, and my gas tank showed full tank, and then it dropped to E. And I was like, oh my gee. we got no gas, and we're going, and then it just started sputtering right after that. And I was thinking, oh no. And it was coming to sundown, you know.
Right. And
we didn't think that you know, we would be stranded there. And then here, the farmers that were back there, they have some clear cut where they're doing alfalfa hay back there. And, you know, the deer like to go over that way. And we were just right past that in the brush, the tree line that goes right past the river. And that's why I was there, because it was kind of like a choke point, you know. And we was walking that bunch of trees. But when we left and we got on the main road, we was trying to catch the last farmers that were leaving to catch a ride, you know. Maybe they might have some gas or something to help us.
Yes.
But we didn't catch them in time. We were too far off the road. So we ended up having to walk to maybe about 2 miles to the nearest place where we could get a vantage point to see if anybody was down there. And we're right by a river that's called Clear Creek. And right there at that bridge, there's a bunch of trees off the ridge right there. And you got to walk up the ridge, and then you'll be out of that bottoms area where we was hunting. And when we got over there, we were standing there taking a break on the bridge, and we heard what sounded like the samurai chatter. You know, have you heard of that? The samurai chatter from the video, where, you know, it sounded like somebody talking, and you know, you couldn't make it out, but it was like rah, 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 and it was making all kinds of noise coming out of the brush.
Yes. Along
that back side of the ridge. And my cousin asked me, he goes, hey, what is that sound, man? It sounds like somebody talking or something. And I said, I can't tell. It don't sound like an animal or anything. It sounded like somebody trying to talk, you know? And so we was like, kind of like looking around over that way. But I was standing there, and there's a bunch of trees that are right on the ridge that were like, I don't know what kind of trees they are, but they were really tall compared to the trees that are around there. and there was only one set on that ridge. And I just so happened to look right as the sun was setting. I seen something walking into the shadow of the biggest tree standing on that ridge. And I was going, hey, did you guys see that? Look, right over there on the ridge. Somebody or something walked into the shadow of that tree. And they're like, I didn't see that. And so we was on the bridge, and we got down on our knees, and we was looking over the concrete bridge there. And I'd say, I don't know the distance, but I'd say it was a good 500 yards away. But that tree was right there to the right. And in the shadow of that tree, I could see something. It looked like it was swaying back and forth, because I had a scope on my 30-30 rifle.
Yeah.
And I could tell that something was standing there, because I was the only one that noticed it when it stepped into the trees. I only seen it take 2 steps before I noticed it walking into those shadows. And I was telling my cousins and I said, who is that, or what are they doing standing there in the shade of that tree? You know, and it was getting dark to where the sun was just barely hitting that ridge, and I could just see something dark reaching into the trees and standing there. And I was telling them, maybe they're counting their cows. I thought it was a rancher, maybe he wanted to count his cows, because there was cattle down there and stuff, you know, and people want to keep track of their cows. You got to count them out, you know.
I understand.
And I was thinking maybe that's what it is, or somebody like that. I didn't think it was a Bigfoot. I assumed that would be a person, you know, because I seen it walking upright. And I was like, who is that? You know, not what it is, but who is it? Right. Yeah, so I was standing and we were seeing something standing there. But after a minute, the sun was getting down, and the brush was hitting. You know, like that Roger Patterson video, the Patty video? It come walking down out of them trees, and it walked right out into the yellow of the grass. And if I would have had a camera for that back then, you know, I'd say I was about maybe 21 years old when that happened. And me and my cousins were all about the same age and stuff. And we were like, I was looking and I was going, who is that walking down the hill? And my cousin, the older one, he goes, that's Bigfoot, you know. And then it hit me, because it was so dark. And I just was like, oh man, you know, what am I really seeing here? And it walked right down, and it was looking underneath the willows like it was, I don't know what it was doing. It was just looking underneath, and it was kind of like veering around. And then we got freaked out, and we said, let's get out of here. So we was running up that hill, and when it seen us, and then it tried to come around to the left and walk around us from behind. And we were running up the hill because we wanted to get out of that valley area in the bottom and get to the top where there's a house up there. And the first house was right here by the ridge, and we ran beyond that. And we ran to the next house, because I'm not going to stop there. If that Bigfoot's right down there, and it was trying to look at us running up the hill. And so we ran to the next residency, and we walked over there, and the dogs were all barking and everything. So we kind of felt a little bit better, you know, because the dogs were barking and stuff.
Right.
And we knocked on the door, and we were all hysterical. We all had our guns. And when we asked for help, the guy who looked at us, he goes, what happened to you guys? You guys got your guns? You better unload your guns. We don't, you know, what's going on? You know, he was showing concern because we had weapons with us, you know.
Well, I mean, that's understandable.
And yeah, and he goes, hey, if you guys got weapons, you unload your guns. You know, I don't want no problems here, you know. And we said, yeah, okay. So we unloaded our guns, but we were all hysterical. All three of us were freaking out. I got a really good look at it, and it had to be at least 8 or 9 feet tall, because the willows were at least 5 to 6 feet tall, and it was bigger than that when it come walking down off that hill. And it looked exactly like the Roger Patterson video, but it was a male. You could tell that it was a male. It was so wide, and it didn't have no breasts like on the other video, because I seen that video, and I always looked at that, and that's what I was using as judgment, you know. And I was like, wow, that has to be Bigfoot, because it was so big and huge, and it was dark and hairy, and you could see it right out in the yellow of the grass at the evening time. And I'd say the encounter lasted at least over maybe 2 or 3 minutes before it took us to run up that hill. And it was walking. When it kind of hooked towards us, we ran up over the hill, and I looked back one last time, and it was showing curiosity when we took off because we ran. And my cousin and them said, shoot it. And I said, there ain't nothing that I got that is going to hurt that thing, that Bigfoot or whatever it was. And I had a 30-30 rifle. I had a 9mm. My cousin had a 30-06, and my other cousin had a 7mm. And I said, man, that don't provoke it. That ain't going to do nothing but upset this thing. And I go, let's just get out of here, man. No use trying to shoot at something that's that big. And I assumed it would be more terrifying than a grizzly bear or something, like that. But I was like,
dangerous.
Yeah, that was my thought too. I thought there ain't no way I'm going to kill this thing. I only had, I think, for when we were shooting around too earlier that day, I only had like 4 bullets in my 30-30 and maybe a 10-round clip in my pistol. And I was thinking, I ain't got enough firepower here to take that thing down. But I'll tell you what, man, that sure opened my eyes to having that encounter, And did you get a look at that picture I posted on the Bigfoot site? Did you get a look at that one?
I've not been able to look at that yet.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that's when your wife contacted me, and that was the 3rd time I had an encounter. That one was a baby juvenile that I had, and my grandmother and grandfather used to tell us about us being on the migration pattern. Remember, I told you that we was on the migration pattern?
Yes.
And they used to tell us that, and a lot of us natives, are in our tribe here, they don't like us to, talk about our encounters to non-tribal members. So they always discourage that. They always told us to, not to be telling people if we had, come into some contact like that or something like that, because they just didn't want people trespassing on a property, disturbing everything,
Yeah, I was going to say there would be a certain amount of wisdom to that to prevent people from coming in and trampling everything.
Yeah, and it's kind of frowned upon to talk to non-tribal members. But me, I'm more of an open-minded person. I've traveled quite a bit, and everything. And I just don't see no use in trying to hold information back like that, So I'm more open than most of them. But my elders they're diehard like that. They won't tell people anything. But since I've had my encounters, I thought, why should we hold back information? It's just an encounter. I'm not trying to hurt them or harm them or anything like that.
Right. And
it's just something. And that first time I actually seen it with my cousins, I had witnesses with me, and I was like, wow, we actually seen something, after we sat down and talked about it, I had looked at it in my scope when I first looked at it. I seen its face, and it had the gray markings of the face looked really shiny, and you could see its eyes. It had, how people say the darks of the eyes.
Okay.
And I could see the whites in its eyes and its pupils and stuff when I was looking at my scope, because I had a pretty high-powered scope. And I was pretty fortunate to get a look at its face, because my other cousins, them, didn't have rifle scopes on theirs. But, yeah, it was pretty crazy to see that,
So a lot of people say that when they see Bigfoot in such close quarters, that the animal reminds them of being too human. Did you get that impression?
Yeah, I seen its face, and it looked human as far as the face went, but its nose did look more like a gorilla.
Okay.
But you could tell its facial features, it had curiosity, and I could tell its expression had a curiosity look to it, But I'll tell you what, that thing was so big and wide, it made any type of wrestler like the Hulk or anybody like that, it made it look small compared to what it was, the width and the size. And when it was walking, you could see the muscle moving through its fur or its hair, You could see the movement in his body, and it was very, very big. You could just see how muscular it was, more like a bodybuilder type, but longer and lanky and just super heavy.
Well,
I couldn't even begin to estimate how heavy it was. You know, it was huge.
Well, you had mentioned earlier seeing a juvenile. Would you care to describe that a little bit better?
Oh, the juvenile that I seen was back behind our house, and it was with a family unit, and the juvenile, I came out early in the morning, and I was cutting my weeds back behind my house, and I seen an impression in the ground, like, you know, when you cut your grass, the grass sticks up.
Yes.
And I was working, and I had used the restroom back there because it's kind of like far away from the road and everything and all that, and there's a bunch of trees back there. And I used the restroom there the day before when I was, you know, working. And when I came back after I cut through that area, there was a body impression where I had used the restroom there that day before on the dirt. And I was looking at the grass that was knocked down. I thought, am I just seeing things, or is that a body impression? And it just reminded me of like where, you know, like if a dog rolls around in his territory, he's marking his ground.
Yes.
And leaving his scent land there. And it reminded me of that because I could see the ground where it was rolling in the grass. And I was like, wow, because it left impressions. And I had even posted that on Facebook too when that happened. And people were like, oh, you're just seeing things. But you know what? You could really tell. I just wish I would have put something there for a measurement, like a shovel or something, to see actually how big that was. Right. But I didn't put nothing next to it for measurement status, you know. And everybody said, oh, that ain't no, you know, because there was nothing to judge it by. You know, it was bigger than a door. You know, like how tall the doors are. They're, what, 5-6 feet tall?
Yes. And
it had to be bigger than that by at least 2 feet, you know. I should have just put something by it. And when I took those pictures, I lost the phone that had it on it, you know, to save it on your phone and the chip that you get with that. I had lost that phone. And so I didn't get a chance to keep that information that I had, or I would have sent a picture to you. But that juvenile was with that family unit. And when I got up that morning, I took a picture of those trees because I had a feeling that somebody was watching me. And I seen something, shadow figures in the trees because it was pretty dense, and I didn't want to walk back there, you know. And I was just cutting the weeds down, and that's when I seen that impression. I kind of had a feeling something was back there because I seen that body impression in the grass. And then after I was telling my cousin that, and she's got a computer to where she could, you know, break down the, because I took a little video caption of the trees, you know, and it was, she had a editing situation on her computer where you could break down and make photos out of every second of the video. It broke it down into photos, and she went through every photo, and she noticed that there was something sitting there in the grass when I took that video, and I didn't know it was even in the grass in the open until after she sent it back to me. And so that's how I got the picture of that video of the juvenile.
So now,
and
have you shown that to a lot of different people? What was the response to that?
Oh, a lot of people said I was high on drugs. I was an alcoholic. A lot of the natives were upset with me because my tribal members were like, you know, you're not supposed to be posting stuff like that and showing non-tribal members. You know, I was getting a lot of flack from my tribal members around the way in my district, in our area. They didn't appreciate me posting that to everybody out in public to see. And I was getting flack from my tribal members. A lot of people were downplaying me. And, you know, I didn't ever think that anybody would get that aggressive just over a video and showing one picture of something that you could see sitting in the weeds, and you could definitely see its face really good. You could see that it had a pointed head, and like how Neanderthals have the eyebrow,
Yes.
where it's really predominant, and you could see that more. And then its eyes, you couldn't see its eyes because the shadow of the light was covering its eyes, but you could definitely see its nose. And that juvenile had more of a human type nose. It was more poking out, not like a ape's nose, how they're flat.
Yes.
It looked more like a human style nose, and you could see its cheeks and its lips and its chin. You could see the facial features more, and it looked. I'd say it looked like maybe like a 10-year-old kid, kind of like, and it was sitting in the brush and the weeds right there, and you could definitely see its face real good, and it looked like the color of it blended in with the brush real good. You know how the weeds during fall time are yellow?
Yes.
It blended in very good. It had like the light browns and the dark browns, but not so yellow, but just a blend of, I don't know, it was dark colored and light colored, kind of like, like it was shedding its skin or fur or something. You know how game animals change color? Yes. During like when deer change colors. I think it was kind of like maybe it was changing for wintertime to summertime type colors or something, but it looked dark. It had two different colors, light brown and a dark brown, but its face was gray colored. You could definitely tell its face was gray, dark gray. And when I got that photo, my cousin goes, "You did see something," because she sent me that video of that and showed me that picture out of that video that I sent her. And she posted on there, she goes, "My cousin did see something." And she sent me that picture, and then I posted that. And then, but, my tribal members were kind of upset with me because I did that, And I just told them, I said, I don't see no reason why we need to hide this stuff, Times have changed, I'm more of an upbeat type person, And I kind of just wanted people to know that, hey, am I really seeing what I'm seeing? And I wanted to get other people's opinion. But I didn't think I'd get so many negative opinions and people downplaying my personality, and thinking that I was on drugs and stuff like that real bad.
People generally mock what they don't understand, and they try to come up with excuses why it fits with their own worldview. But yeah, I have to ask, since these multiple encounters here in the same general area, is there a general feeling of unease there, like you're being watched, or you feel threatened?
When I first, my grandmother told me that we was on the migration pattern, and I kind of she told us that when I was little, but when I was the first encounter, I didn't feel anything like that. But the second encounter, when I was hunting, that one definitely made my hair stand up, and I got freaked out. Then the third one, when we seen it walking, that one kind of shocked me because I seen its face.
Yes.
And that one gave me nightmares, And but when I seen that juvenile and I took that photo of the juvenile, I just had a feeling that somebody was watching me. And I was one time I was working on my truck, right?
Yes.
And I was changing the spark plugs, and I parked underneath our trees right there. And the trees that I'm talking about are a little bit further out, maybe about 100 yards or 100 feet down further away from me. And they're pretty thick, and they're really thick brush. And I was putting my head underneath the hood, and I had this ugly feeling that somebody was behind me. And I turned around and I go, "Who's back here?" And I looked, and I didn't see anybody, but I had that feeling like somebody was on my back, looking at me. And I freaked out, and I just finished my work on my truck, and I went in the house, drove it in front, but I didn't realize that something was back there until after I seen the body impressions in the grass. And then it dawned on me that, hey, something's back there. And then when I got that picture of what I gave to my cousin, and she edited it out, and I seen that, then that morning there was something leaving, and there was a little bit of opening, and I could see a family unit of 5 of them walking away, and they were leaving the area. And you could definitely tell there was 5 of them. And I could tell the father was really light brown. It looked like grizzly bear color, like dark brown.
Okay.
And then the second one that was shorter and not as tall as that one that looked like the father. I assumed that it was a mother of the little ones, the juveniles that I took picture of. It was black. I could tell it was jet black when it was walking away, and it was carrying a baby on its shoulders. And then there were the 2 other ones were the juveniles that looked like little twins. They were like brown, light brown. And they looked like they were, I'd say, like about maybe 4 to 5 feet tall. But they were, crawling. The little ones were crawling. I couldn't really see them as much, but just make out, their shadows in the weeds going by. But the other ones, I could see them really clear walking out. But when they came out in the open, they crawled down on all 4s, and they all started crawling away in the opening. But when they got to the trees, they stood back up again, and then they walked into the trees. And I thought that was just kind of like, reminded me like of a wolf or something would crawl like that,
Yes.
Like how they creep on their prey or something. I thought, wow, that was kind of creepy to see them crawl like that. And when they stood up, you could definitely tell they were huge. And to me, that really blew my mind that I seen them crawling out in the open. And you'd figure something that big and tall, you'd be able to see it, But when they blend in with that brush, they just disappeared, and I couldn't believe how quick they could be camouflaged by the brush and just the natural surroundings, because their color of their fur and the way they look, they just blend right in. Even the dark one, you could just see it looking like a shadow in the brush and the weeds. And I was just amazed. I was bewildered on how quick they could just lay down and disappear like that. Yeah. And how big they are. So I kind of like had just astonished of what I just witnessed. And, it was just, I guess what you could say is just the astonishment, a loss of words, and the shock of seeing it. I kind of was in PTSD mode. I didn't know what to say. I was just stunned to what I had witnessed. And it takes a minute for you to grasp that reality of what you're actually seeing. You question your eyes for what it sees, and your mind is like in overload mode, is what I felt like. I was trying to comprehend actually what I was seeing with my eyes, and I couldn't believe it, And I've been growing up hunting, and I've been on this reservation for all my life. I've traveled quite a bit, and I've seen a lot of area, but all the times I've been hunting, I've never ever witnessed something to that extent. And I still go hunting a lot, but it's like now I don't stay after dark anymore. When it gets dark, I get out of there, and I just give them the room they need. But it's like I think twice, and I keep my eyes out, and I keep my guns around me a little bit more nowadays. But it's like I realize that they're out there, and sometimes I was hunting, and you'll hear a whoop or a call or something like that.
Yes.
And I just know that's time to get on out of there. I don't stay to see anybody. I know they're there, so I just give them their space. But it was a eye-awakening sight there to see something like that, and just seeing one, let alone having how many encounters, kind of blew my mind. And in our traditional views, people always say that you see it for a reason, you know.
Yes.
And I kind of believe that too, because after that, I kind of had things happen to me, and they were good and bad, but you know, I took it in stride, and I just looked at it that it made me believe in my traditional values a lot more from what I was told, and the stories that were passed down to me from my family. It kind of really opened up my eyes that, you know, the stories that I was told in our culture, it really awoke in me to, you know, really enhance my Native American side a lot more. So it did do me good seeing that, because I prayed a lot more, and it brought me a lot closer to my culture, seeing that. So I think that was the reason why I was able to see them. It was for a reason, and that's what I got out of it. Even though it was frightening and scary, it kind of woke me up to the reality that there are things out here that we know. We may know they're there, but they're not scientifically documented yet, you could say, from what I witnessed. And I always was told these stories as I was growing up, and I didn't realize that they were actually based on some real true facts somewhere down the line.
Well, now,
you know,
being having firsthand experience and being an eyewitness here, how would you describe Bigfoot as a creature? In other words, what do you think it is?
In my own opinion,
yes,
I think that they are a part of a human branch of the, what do they say, Homo sapiens.
Yes,
I think that they are actually a human type hybrid that's just off of our branch. You know how we are as human beings. They're like us, but yet they have the ape characteristics. They live, you know, at one with nature, so they don't need nothing else, you know. They are more smarter than what you think they would be, you know, because they live out there with nature. They're at one with nature. They have human features. They are smarter than us because they know what to do, how to catch game. You know, from what I've seen, they are a family unit like how we are. And me being a Native American, you know, we make lean-tos, teepees, and stuff like that. And from what I've seen, they have the ability to do that. And that's not like just ape-like. They have abilities to make things. They make structures. They are a family unit. They know how to work together to capture their game, and that takes communication. So they have to be a lot smarter to avoid people. Also, they know what the dangers are, and so it's a lot smarter than what people think, you know.
So you would think
they have
that Bigfoot is as cautious of us as we are of it.
Yes. From what I've seen, I believe that they are smarter than us. And they know what a gun is, because when I looked at that one and it heard the gunshots we were shooting around before,
yes.
When I pointed at it with my scope and my rifle, it looked at us, and it gave me like an upset look. You know what I mean? When I looked at it with my rifle, it looked at me with disgust, like I pointed that thing at him. And it made a face at me when I looked at it in my scope. And that kind of sent shivers down my back when I was sleeping. I woke up and I had, you know, nightmares from that when I first seen it walking down off that hill. And my cousin said, "That's Bigfoot." You know, and I looked at it in my scope, and it looked at me, and when I pointed that gun at it, it changed its facial features. You know, it knew what a gun was, and that's what, you know, really kind of like sent a thought through my head. Like, these things are very, very, as big as they are, they know they're smart. People just assume that just because they got 8 features that they're not that smart, but they are very smart. They know what a weapon is, you know. And so that takes kind of some kind of rationale to distinguish what a weapon is or something that could harm you. You know what I mean?
Yes. So along those lines, once you witnessed the family unit, have you encountered any of them since?
As a matter of fact, I haven't encountered any more since that time because around our area where I live at now, they have a lot of fields that's gone down, and they've took out a lot of trees and a lot of the stuff that was there before. Now there's not that much around our area, but when I did have it wasn't an encounter, but when I was hunting after that, like maybe about 5 years back or so, I was up in the hills and we shot an elk, and we went back to go retrieve it because it got dark on us and we couldn't get it out.
Yes.
So we went back to go retrieve it, and there was a spring right there coming out of the mountainside, and below the spring was below, but above it there was a dig out on the side of the mountain that wasn't there the day before when we shot that elk. And when we gutted it out and pulled the guts out, yes, all the heart and the liver and the main organs that contain iron were missing out of that, the heart and the liver. And there was pieces missing off of our elk that was ripped out on the inside, like the filet mignon area, the softer parts that, they were missing out of that. And my cousin that was with me and my nephew, they said they heard something growling around in the back of the trees. And I thought, because that area we're at contained a lot of mountain lions.
Yes.
And so I just kind of blew it off at that. But when I went back to that spring area, because I was cleaning off my hands from quartering it up, and I was washing the blood off my hands, I seen that dugout above that springs. And you know what it reminded me of?
What's that?
It reminded me of a throne, like where somebody would sit there,
yes,
and lean back. And it was dug out perfectly like a chair. And when I sat in that chair, I could see the whole valley all the way down, and the road comes up one way through that valley. And from where the chair was at, it was about maybe 4 feet down. And if you had, I know my legs are shorter than that. When I sat there, my legs wasn't very far, but whatever sat there, to me, it appeared that their legs were longer, and if they would sit in there in that area, your feet would reach the water. For some reason, I got an idea that somebody was sitting there and they were soaking their feet. And that's the thought that I had when I was sitting in that. And I was thinking, wow, did somebody sit here? Or, and it's right above the spring, in that distance, and the legs, my legs wasn't halfway there, it wouldn't reach there. But I was thinking from what I seen before and I was thinking that would be what the big man would do if he wanted to soak his feet. Right, yes. From what I seen, it just kind of like, I said, okay, let's get this elk out of here now. This guy might be around here now. Let's get on out down the road.
You mentioning the elk made me think that the initial encounter where your truck ran out of gas, when you went back to retrieve the truck, was the deer still there? I was curious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The deer was still in there. We was walking out of there because we had to go up a while back. But when we came back, the deer was still in there. And what we had seen I think it was the same one that we seen when we was in the brush.
Yes.
When it had scared out everything, because I think we had scared it out of its sleeping area.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I assumed happened, because when those horses was running, something scared it. And where my cousin and them were seeing what they seen that pile of poop sitting there. And then my cousin shot that other one. He said he seen something in the brush or heard it. He wasn't sure. He didn't tell me he seen anything, but he had heard something standing over there by the brush, and it was making noise and doing something. he was kind of vague about it because he was just worried about getting that deer, and we were coming to him because he was hollering, "Hey, I got one!" So we was getting out of there, and that's when we all had come together, and we all had something happen to us. Each one of us had a story to tell when we got there, and I was kind of spooked. I said, "Hey, you know what? Something scared those horses towards me, and it freaked me out because I seen something that looked like a lean-to." I said, "I'm not feeling too cool about being down here." And I've never had that happen to me before, all the years I've been hunting and everything, you know. And I've seen bear, I've seen cougars, I've seen wolves up here. And I never had that feeling of having an urge to get out of there like that, you know, till that time. And, you know, your hair stands up on your neck, you know, your sixth sense comes in there and it tells you something and you want to listen to that. Because I never really had that feeling before until I had that happen to me. And the second time was when I was right behind my house, and I've never had anything happen to me around the house like that either. And to have that feeling so close to home was really scary, you know. And I had a problem going out at night when that happened to me because my lights were on, but back behind the house back there, it's really dark. And I didn't like that. Always had lights in the back, you know, security lights, motion sensors. And so after I had that encounter, when I put up motion sensors, and I'd never ever sleep with my curtains open, you know, after that, you know. And if I had anything, I'd always close the curtains, and if I heard something or whatever, I would just blow it off and just, you know, turn up the TV because I didn't want to go look out there, you know. But now that I don't have that issue because there's so much fields out there, and people have moved in on our family side back behind our house there, and there's more houses back there and stuff. But, you know, it really kind of like changed around our region in our area because people are, you know, we have family members that have kids and stuff and more housing area. But I still go hunting, and I worry about when I go out there. Sometimes I think like, okay, let's just go hunting and let's not see the big guy this time. Right. You know. Yeah. So, but you know, I've had those encounters, and you know, what happened to me, I think, was for a reason, you know, and I take it at that, you know. It brought me a lot closer to my culture, and you know, now I just accept it for the way it is, you know. To me, it's just like running into a grizzly bear out there nowadays, you know, and if I see him, I'm just going to turn around and give him his space, you know. But I know they're real, and people that could say that are in the cities, they don't know. I guess you could say they've never been out there to witness something, you know, and until they do, they're going to be a skeptic, you know. And even if you do show them a picture like what I posted, there's always going to be those namesayers that say, oh, that's just a guy in a suit. And when I see that Roger Patterson video, that's the real deal, man. That's the real McCoy. Yeah. So I got to give it to those guys, you know, for catching that on film.
Was that the extent of your encounters with Bigfoot?
Yeah, that was. But, you know, we have all kinds of myths down here in Fort Hall. They have the deer woman, too. They talk about the deer woman. She's part deer on her bottom half, and the part is like a pretty female. But she's like what you could call a banshee type thing. Okay. She's out there to be like a banshee. They out there to lure the men away from the area, and then when they get them in the woods back there, she makes them disappear or eats them or something. They just know that they disappear, so they capture them. They're like a banshee. They cry out and they catch you. But the deer woman, she seduces you into going out into the woods, and you're looking at her face, and you don't look down until you see her hooves. By then, it's too late, they say. But that was one of the stories we were told. Watch out for the deer woman, because she'll lure you into the she'll keep you enchanted with her eyes and her pretty face. But if you get out in the woods with her, she will make you disappear. You will not come back.
So now that you have proof that Bigfoot exists, all right, does it make you revisit some of these other fables that you were told as a child?
It just makes me wonder about them. I've never seen the deer woman, but I've heard even, other people have seen it and stuff like that. And that's more like a spirit, I believe. I've never seen that one, but I've heard of other people seeing it. But they say that she disappears. She pops up like in a puff of smoke, and she can vanish in a puff of smoke. So that's more like a spirit entity to me.
Right.
But to me,
yes.
Yeah, it's more of a fable, that one. But the Bigfoot deal, that one is the real deal there. I know that one of these days somebody's going to see one, and they're going to find a part or something, because I believe they bury their dead. They carry them and they bury them. That's what I believe. That's why they won't find any, I don't think, unless you see one. They've had some, I don't know what you could call shootings around in our reservation.
Yes.
And they said that they wounded some mortally, but nobody went out to go find the body. I wouldn't want to go chasing around after it and find a whole bunch of them all wanted to rip you apart because you killed one of their family members.
Well, yes, that would definitely not be an expectation you'd want to realize, put it that way.
Yeah, right. And, these things can hold grudges, We've had some tribal members that had them trying to break into their houses and stuff after they, shot at them and stuff like that. And they had their dogs killed. And when I was back behind my house, after I seen that impression in the grass and stuff,
yes,
I noticed that there was a lot of cat skeletons, and we had a lot of cats around the way. And they had a pack of wild dogs that were running around that everybody had just abandoned their dogs, when they got into a herd.
Yeah.
And we was finding that all the cats disappeared around the area, and that some of those rogue dogs that were running around disappeared all of a sudden too. And I was finding skulls back there in those trees in the area back there. And I just find that, like they were coming through during that time. And what kind of made me freak out a little bit, because when I seen that little family unit,
yes,
it was during the year 2015, and they had an announcement saying that our Idaho area was going to be encountering the eclipse during that time.
I see. And
that you could only visit the state of Idaho, you'd be able to see that eclipse clear as day, and it's going to be a 100-year eclipse or 500-year eclipse or something like that. But it was in our state that you could see it clear as day when it happened. But I noticed that when that happened, I didn't realize that eclipse was happening during that sighting until later. I thought about it. I thought, wow, I wonder if they were here for that eclipse, migrating through during that time.
Yeah, that's a possibility, especially if they have human level intelligence.
I kind of just thought, I wonder if maybe they were coming through here to watch that eclipse, because I never, so many people came from all over the United States just to witness that eclipse. Some people came internationally to the state of Idaho just to see that, because it was I don't know how many years, 100 years or 500 years or something, but it was a long time in between when that happens. And I'm a believer in the Mayan clock and all that kind of stuff. And everything we have deals with the sun.
Yes.
With our Native American traditions, we wake up to the rising of the sun. We pray in the morning. And then when the sun sets, we don't sleep towards the sun. We face towards the sunrise. When we sleep, we point our heads towards the sun. And when we sleep, if you sleep towards the sunset, you're prone to have nightmares and bad dreams, and things like the spirit worlds could come into you when you're sleeping facing the west. So we always face to the east when we sleep. At least that's what I was told when I was growing up as a child. You know, you sleep towards the sunrise. And like with, they have dream catchers too. We usually put our dream catchers towards the rise of the sun. So that way it'll capture all the bad spirits or any bad thoughts that people have, or, you know, nightmares or whatever ailments you got. It'll take that away from you. So that's why we hang it on the east side of the rising of the sun. So everything that we believe in has to deal with that. And that kind of made me think about when they were traveling through, kind of like, you know, in our traditions. And it just kind of like made me think, you know, a little bit when I was, you know, thought about our customs. And I just kind of wondered, it just put a thought in my head. I wondered if that's why they was coming through during that time.
Well, that might bear some
and I thought research. That was, yeah. I never, you know, that's what I kind of got out of it, you know, and some little things like that. And, you know, I had another thought too, when I seen that family unit and I smelt their nasty musk and stuff. There was a time where I had urinated on the ground right there, and they were rolling around in that. It gave me a thought that, you know how pigs wallow to keep the bugs off of them?
Yes.
And they do that to keep the bugs off them and the ticks off their skin. And I was thinking they might roll around in their own feces and urinate on themselves to keep making oil out of their skin, to where it would keep the bugs off them, like how pigs do. Because they roll around in their own stuff because they're always stinking, like, you know, real bad. And they like elk, they urinate on their musk, their husks on their legs.
Yes.
I think that that's what Bigfoot does to keep the bugs off them, because they're hairy. And they probably get lice and ticks and stuff on them or whatever. But if they do that, that would suffocate them enough to get it off their skin, and they wouldn't be able to stay on you very long.
See, that's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, so I thought that was maybe the reason why they would be so stinky and smelly, because what I've seen when they were rolling around in the ground, that it was darker than the rest of the grass because it had a oil. It looked like it had oil on its fur or something, because it is stunk, and it was really stinky around that area. And the trees where they were like next to where I went over there, and I was investigating after they had left.
Yes.
I noticed on the trees where they were climbing on the trees, or where they were standing or leaning on those trees, there was oil, like a film on the trees. And it was really like they mark their area, like they rub on a tree or something, like deer do, where they, you know, have a mark on their scent where they do that.
Well, that's possible.
And I thought that's what they were doing.
Wild animals have been known to do that. They mark their territory.
Yeah. And when I urinated in that area, I think that's what that Bigfoot was doing, was rolling in the area where I had done that, because to them, that's a marker.
Yes.
And I think that's why it did that, to mark that area that it was coming through there. And that one time when I forgot to mention that, one time when I first moved into my house, because I traveled a lot and I finally wanted to get my home site and stuff.
Yes.
And I had my trailer put there, and I didn't live there yet, but it was wintertime, and I had a set of tracks coming off the trees and coming towards my house, and it went around in between our houses. It went in between the houses, coming through and behind my house and back to those trees that I had witnessed them at. But that year I had shot a good sized elk, and I put it in that house because I wasn't living there yet. And I didn't want nobody to steal my horn, so I locked it inside that house.
Yes.
And when I went back to the house, those tracks went back there, and it looked in the kitchen window. And to me, I think it was smelling around like when it was walking through there. And I videoed that too, and that was on that phone that got lost. The tracks of it walking back through there in between our houses. And I videoed that, and I had my cousin with me, and he witnessed that with me, and I gave him my gun. I said, hey, if something comes out, you shoot that thing, but don't shoot me. And I went out there and I did a video of this footprints and the marks that it made during the snow. And I totally forgot about that, but I had that video, and from when I walked up there and when I walked back, you could see the span of the footprints. It took me 3 steps between each footprint that there was. And you know how natives have, we walk left to right?
Yes.
And it's off-stepped, right? Because you got your right foot, then your left foot. And it's to the left, to the right. But when I was videoing that big footprints, they were in line, the foot to toe, but it was in line, in a direct line, not like a person's footprints. They were like its own footprint structurally, like their body was made to walk in a line, a direct line. And I thought that was really a determining factor, that was not a man-made print. You know, like if somebody's going to play a hoax on you,
yes,
they wouldn't know that. You know, the footprints were in line with each other, toe to toe, in a direct line. And I was like, wow, those are definitely big footprints. And when I walked over there and I turned around, I videoed how small my span of my feet from mark to mark. And from where that one was, it had to be like, I don't know, maybe 4 feet or 5 feet apart, because I took 3 steps in between each one of their spans. And you can see that on the video when I turned around and I looked at my footprints go left to right and they're offset. And you can see where this stepped, and it's in a step line, right in direct line with the other footprint. And I found that to be very amazing to see that their stride was a lot different than a person's stride. So that kind of blew my mind with that. And so I know that their structure of their body is different than a person's as far as their weight, carrying all that.
So I have to ask, after experiencing all this, how does it affect you moving forward? I know you said you become closer to your culture, but
yeah. To me, it awoke my eyes to seeing things that are, people say that, you know, they don't exist. And I know they exist, but it just made me more of aware of things that, you know, I believe in things that others say don't exist now. If I see a UFO, I see lights or whatever, I'm
yes.
more open-minded now, and I'm more attuned to listen to somebody's story, especially other people's encounters. And, you know, I noticed that some people can tell you something, and you have that experience of what you have, and it gives you a better understanding of what some other people can see. You know, instead of being negative minded, I have more of a open mind now, and it helps me understand other people can have traumatic experiences like what I had. You know, I had nightmares for a while, and talking to other people when they have encounters help you deal with things like that. If I put myself in that mode of mind that, yeah, it's out there, and to talk to other people that have encounters that are not believed by other folks, you know, it makes you kind of like, I don't know, you just feel that somebody can tell you the truth. You know, you have a bit of truth with that person.
Right.
Because nobody else will believe them. You know, it kind of gives you a little bond with that person. And it makes you feel better when you talk about it, kind of like an AA meeting, or, you know, like the veterans post-traumatic stress meetings that they have for them.
So you would
it helps you deal with that.
You would recommend sharing your stories then?
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And in our tribe, they kind of frown on that. But to me, I'm more like an open-minded person. After I had these encounters, it makes me feel better knowing that other people have had these same things happen to them. And some people's experiences are more traumatizing than mine, you know. I was glad that each one that I seen was kind of at a distance and not so close.
Right.
You know, I mean, I could see it through a scope in the rifle, and seeing that gave me nightmares, just its face and its expression, you know, and seeing the darkness of his face and his eyes, I could make out, you know, parts of it and stuff. But, you know, I know other people have had more closer encounters and have even been grabbed and, you know, things thrown at them or whatever, you know.
Well, now,
but
I have to ask, do you have a website where you share this information, or some way people can contact you to talk about this?
I joined a site where your wife met me at, right there, the Bigfoot stories and videos and encounters.
Yes.
I'm on that site right there. I post that, and I posted that juvenile Bigfoot on there. If you talk to her, you should probably could get it to get that picture to you. And I've had people tell me that they haven't had very many juvenile photos like that.
Well, you know,
and that it was
it has been mentioned before. People have mentioned seeing juveniles, but it's not common.
Yeah,
it's almost as though, like a human, they would protect their young jealously.
Yeah, and you know, when I took that that video of that and I had that edited and give to me, shipped to me through the email, I didn't even see it there when I first took the video. I was looking more at the trees behind me because I seen shadows in there, and that's when I noticed the impressions in the grass and stuff. But I knew something was back there because of that, you know. And when I seen the shadows back there, it was the parents that was out there, and I think they were. I heard like grunting,
yes,
before, and it must have called it back to the trees because I seen something just bounding back in the brush, and that's when I started trying to get the video. But it must have been sitting there in the open before I came out there, and I just started videoing before I came out and looking at the trees, and I videoed it, and then I thought, oh, those are just shadows. Those ain't nothing back there. And then I took that video and I shut it off because I didn't think nothing was back there. But after she examined it, and I had the ugly feeling that something was back there. It kept bothering me, you know, in the back of my head, and I had that feeling somebody was watching me. And I told my cousin about it, and she goes, hey, send me that video that you got. Maybe I could break it down and, you know, see if something's in those trees.
Yes.
And she looked at that, and that's when she sent that back to me. She goes, hey, you did see something. Look at this. And she showed me that. She highlighted that area where it was at and sent me that. And it was sitting right there in the open, and you could tell that it looked right at me. And then after that, that's when I heard that grunt, and it come running back into the trees. Because it made a grunt. I heard something grunt, and I didn't know that it probably was its call to get back here. Somebody's coming, you know.
Well, that makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah, and I didn't really realize that. I thought it was just me hearing something, you know. But after things happened, then I started putting it together, you know. And on my house in the area where I was at,
yes,
it kind of made me laugh because before that happened, I heard. It sounded like something on the roof, you know, like how birds land on your roof. You could hear them like their little foot,
right,
you know, running on the top of the roof. And I kept saying, knock it off, you birds, go away, because we have birds around there a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it, but I think that those little guys were crawling on the house. Because, yeah, I just kind of put that week before I had heard that in the morning, early in the morning, like maybe about 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yes.
And I heard the pitter pattern on the roof, and I didn't realize that, you know, till afterwards. I put 2 and 2 together after the fact, and I was thinking, man, those things were on the roof, and I thought they were birds crawling up there because they wake up early in the morning. You could hear them and they land on the top of the roof and stuff. And the electric line, you could see all the birds flying around, a big flock of them. And I just assumed that it was the birds up there. But, after it came down to it, I'm not a tree expert either.
Yes.
I've seen trees back there, and I've seen those juveniles in the trees, and I didn't realize that they were in the trees there, but they were eating the limbs and the leaves off the trees. And I don't know what type of trees they are. They're not aspen trees. They're kind of like maybe an oak or something like that.
Okay.
But they were eating the leaves off of it, or the acorns or something. But I noticed that the leaves were being ate off of the trees there after they had left, and that the oil was on the limbs where they were at. And there was a limb that had been gripped so hard that it had left impressions of its handprint on or its footprint or something. I don't know how it had a grip mark on it, and you could tell something grabbed it real tight to climb up the tree, and it left fingerprints or something on the limb to where it grabbed it so tight it left impressions on the branch. And I couldn't believe that something would grab the branch so tight that it could squish the tree limb and leave an impression.
That would take a lot of strength to do that.
Oh yeah, and I couldn't even. I tried it with other branches, and there's no way I could do that with anything like that. So that kind of amazed me, that the strength that those little juveniles even had, more than any person could ever grab something and grip it.
Well, a chimpanzee, for instance, which is much smaller than an adult human, has amazing strength and are typically stronger than an adult human. Right.
But I didn't realize that they were in the trees even before that, So that in all these times when we'd go hunting and everything, all the bones and the debris that I get from hunting,
yes,
during the years, I'd always take those bones and the leftover carcass back there after I debone it and give it to my dogs. And I'd always put it back there by those trees around the way, so it wouldn't be stinking around the house. And they could chew on it out there and do what they want. The dogs could chew on that.
Right.
But here, all those years I was hunting before that, I never realized that. I could have been feeding them. And that's probably the reason why they might have been coming through there too. Well, because I kept on doing that. Every year I'd go hunting. Yeah, a food source. And around our area, there's a lot of people that do the same thing like we do. We throw our bones and stuff in the brush and trees for the dogs to eat. They like chewing on the bones and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of maybe a pattern that they come down through every hunting season to get free food like that.
It's a possibility. But one last question. Based on all of your experiences, are you looking forward to another encounter with Bigfoot?
I would like to see one again, just to see one again. But I know they're real. I've heard them. I've encountered them when they were coming out and stuff.
Yes.
But it's always an interesting thing to me if you ask me that. And I would like to see one again, as long as it's at a distance and not so close. at a distance, and I never mentioned this, but a long time ago, my father seen one when he was hunting.
Yes.
And he had a bad experience because he seen it when he was hunting, and when he seen that, it traumatized him to where he went to the local pub and had a couple drinks, but he had gotten ran over that night. So it was kind of a bad luck situation for my father when he seen it, because he had gotten ran over by a guy that was just intoxicated at the bar and ran him over on accident. But
Well,
he had
his thoughts would be much more negative than yours.
Yeah, but he had seen it a little bit closer than what I had, and he was above it, and he seen it walking. He thought it was a grizzly bear because it was walking up the hill.
Yes.
And he said it got to a point where it stood up, where it got flatter, and it stood up. But when it was walking straight up that incline, he thought it was a bear, and he thought, okay, no big deal. And then he got to the flat area, and it stood up, and then it started walking. And then my father was like, whoa, what the heck is that, you know? And then he couldn't believe what he seen, and he went to the local pub to, you know, shake it off and have it frosty. But, yeah, he had problems after that. He got run over. And, you know, us natives, they say it's bad luck to see that. But I didn't have that happen to me. It kind of awoke me to my culture and stuff after I had, you know, thought about it, you know. But I just took it as it come, you know, and try to put it as, you know, they're the guardians of the woods is what our people say about Bigfoot. You know, he's the man of the woods, and, you know, the stories that we've been told, you know, it puts it in that perspective. But they say that he kidnaps the kids and he eats them. That's what they say, you know. So he is known in our tribe to be, you know, a cannibal. If their kids are out there and they're naughty, they taste better, is what our grandmother used to tell us. So if you're a naughty kid and you get kidnapped, you know why? It's because you're naughty.
Well,
but, yeah, that's...
I think we can end on that note and recommend that people definitely not make themselves tastier to Bigfoot.
Definitely. That's what I would say, too. But, yeah, that's what kind of like my story there, you know, and the encounters that I had, you know, growing up.
Well, thank you a lot for sharing this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. And if I have any other encounters or anything like that, I'll give you guys a call.
Please do.
And all right, it sounds good, man. You take care.
You too.
Have
Thank you
one.
very much. This is Charles Romans, and on behalf of myself and our guests, thank you for joining us on this walk through the shadows of legend. If you like what you heard, please follow us and visit our website at shadowsoflegend.com and support our Patreon page to help keep the content flowing. And if you would like to be a guest and share your own brush with a stranger paranormal, don't hesitate to email us and include a contact number. The strange and surreal, the normal and the paranormal are all aspects of the world in which we live. As you reflect upon the stories we have shared, keep in mind that the people sharing these stories are actual, real people just like us. Were the stories shared compelling enough to be given credibility, or should they be relegated to the deeper part of the shadows? But when determining this, it might be a good idea to keep an open mind, because when we look around, we might discover that our own world is less brightly lit than we once thought. Until next time, I'll be waiting for you in the shadows of legend.